In this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to mount the two larger capacitors on this Yamaha CR-820. I figure it's kind of important because it's one of the bigger steps, because these are not just going to fit directly in there. You do have to do some modifications to get it to fit in there. And of course, you want to make sure positive is in the right direction. This side's positive, this side down here is positive. So you do want to make sure you got it lined up correctly and everything. That's what I'm doing right now as well. And you can see there, I kind of got the bracket just to kind of test fit it. It's not screwed in or anything yet. I'm just kind of testing it to see how it's going to look and how low I want to go on that. But we'll go ahead and flip it to the other side. And you can see there, I kind of made this hole righter on this one. And you can see there, I kind of made this hole a little bit long, but it's not touching or bridging any of the traces, which is very important because you can see there's other traces running there too. So be very careful, but all the legs are going through the PCB board, so I'll be able to support that capacitor properly, which is why they put the extra legs on there. Two of them are only, one's for negative, one's for positive. The others are actually for support. So, you know, I kind of wanted to keep that there so that way, besides just gluing the capacitor, it also has supports on the legs as well and stuff like they're designed to. So that's what I'm doing kind of right now. I'm going to go and clean this all up, of course. And then I'll show you once that's all soldered in and stuff. But there you go. That's kind of what it looks like. And here you go. I'll go ahead and take this out and show you where I made the holes so you can go and do it on yours as well. So we'll take this one out first. And hold on, it's kind of in there pretty good. And you can see there, it was this hole right here, which is the negative, and then it's this hole right here, which is one of the standoffs that you gotta drill. These two you don't have to touch because they actually, the spacing is correct. And for those that want to know what capacitor I use, there you go. So you can be able to order one when you want to go and do yours and kind of follow through with it. On this one here, it's a little bit different. Instead of doing the holes there, you can see I did one of the holes here and one of the holes here, which are the two standoff ones. Just make sure, of course, you're not bridging across any traces and stuff. And I'll show you that once I get everything, of course, soldered and mounted in. So I went ahead and finished cleaning up the pads and stuff, removing the solder mask and kind of repairing it, and then went ahead and soldered the capacitors in there. And that's how you want it to look like. Of course, make sure you got the orientation right and stuff like that, and make sure all the leads are actually soldered in. And there you go. And two of those leads are just going to be to support the capacitor, while the other two actually make the connection. But that's how it would look pretty much. I'm going to go ahead and make the holes in the back off camera and stuff. But yep, there you go. And of course, they're not going nowhere. It's pretty secure, and then I'll put a little glue on the bottom to help further support it. And that's how you install these two larger capacitors on these Yamaha CR-820 receivers. So one of the last final steps that you want to do after you get done installing the two main filter caps is to actually test them in circuit, which I did right there. And you can see they do have a good connection. So that'll be it for this part of the video. So I figure I'll go ahead and start on the switches since, you know, I gotta wait for parts to do anything else. So, and it's a pretty important step too, because a lot of people just spray deox and call it a day. But the problem is these switches over the years do build up a lot of grease, gunk, and stuff. I actually seen grease inside them, and also green corrosion and stuff like that. And our deox is not gonna clean that out. You literally have to take these switches apart manually and actually polish up and clean and get all that gunk out of there and stuff like that. I don't know how these are going to be, but I know on a lot of the Pioneer SX I work on or Project 1 receivers, they can get quite bad. So we're going to take these apart and see how these are. And yep, just as I suspected, it's pretty bad, and that's after spraying some contact cleaner. And you can see there, these were actually cleaned this up, but it didn't do this and didn't do the actual bottom contacts pretty good. So that's why I always take these apart, because you can see there, that's pretty bad. So I'm going to go ahead and take these contacts, these small ones. You got to be careful. You don't want to bend them, and you want to make sure you, of course, install them in the right orientation and line it up and stuff in here. But we'll go ahead and take those contacts off and pretty much give this a good polishing. So here's after minutes of polishing and cleaning up, and it did took quite some time. You had to do inside and out. But you can see those are much better, and these switches will actually work properly now that they're actually has something to contact. I'm honestly surprised that it even worked at all, to be quite honest with you, seeing how black they were, but somehow they did. I don't know how, they just did. But either way it goes is what it should look like. When you go and put these contacts back on there, you want to actually slide them on. You don't want to try to push them on from top because you're more likely to bend them and disfigure them that way. I always slide them on when I'm rebuilding the switches and stuff. Yes, I will go and spray a protector like Deox and stuff to protect them. And these switches should hopefully live to last a few years, but you definitely want to rebuild them. You just don't want to go ahead and spray Deox as I showed you in another video, because you saw how blacking and bad. And Deox, even though very good stuff, is not going to take care of all that and then to end up just oxidizing, corroding again. So when you're doing a full rebuild, take them apart and clean them up properly. So here's the second switch, and I figure I'll go and see how bad this one was, and you can see it's pretty much just as bad as the other one. Now believe it or not, that's actually not the worst I've seen. If you work for anyone, especially that's worked on Pioneer SXs, some of the Project 1 receivers, and have taken apart the switches and stuff, you'll know what I mean. I seen those where they used this grease in there, and I also seen where they turn literally green in the inside and stuff like that. That's how bad I seen them. So this is actually one of the cleaner ones, and that's because when he had this last service, they did spray deoxide on some of the switches and stuff, and that's why you kind of see this area is kind of somewhat clean, because likely the modes he was using the most and stuff. But either way it goes, if you want to do a proper full restoration, that also means desoldering switches, taking them all individually apart and cleaning and polishing those contacts and putting a protector lubricant on them to keep it from oxidizing again and stuff. And that will ensure you get something that you can use daily without having intermittent problems and stuff like that. So always take the time, even though I know it's kind of a pain in the neck and stuff like that. Desolder the switches. You can get one of these desolder stations up here that makes it easier. Or you can do it with the desolder pump, like something like this right here. Or you can even do it with the Rick and stuff like that. But take the time, desolder them, and actually go ahead and make sure you clean and polish those contacts. Put a protector on them, put them back together, and you should be good for several years. Here's the second switch after some polishing and cleaning up. No, I'm not going to polish them from here, finish and stuff, because obviously they won't work good as contacts. You want them to be a little bit rough so it makes good contact, but you want them to be clean too as well. One thing to note though, when you do put these contacts back on, you always slide them in and make sure you got them in the position you pulled them out in, so when you go ahead and reassemble the switch, it actually sits in these grooves nice and even, and you're not squashing the contact and so forth. And then it's pretty, you go and spray a little bit of protector on there to keep them from oxidizing again and stuff like that. And these switches should last a few years now. Now for potentiometers and stuff, you do not want to use tuner or contact cleaner, unless of course it's a step volume control, which on higher end preamplifiers and stuff, they'll use individual resistors with contact and stuff. Then you can go ahead and use contact cleaner on those, but on regular potentiometers and stuff where they use a carbon resistor that essentially goes across in a wiper, you want to go ahead and use, and what I use is, and I'll show you, is DX fader lube, because this won't eat at the carbon and stuff like that. And you can easily just spray where there's an opening right there, and because there's two pods stacked, you got to clean both of course and stuff like that, and just spray fader lube in there and then work its way back and forth a few times. You do not need to take these apart to clean them, and you want to go and do that on all of them. But anything that uses contacts, of course, then you can go ahead and use tuner cleaner or contact cleaner to clean those. So you also want to go ahead and service these ALP switches as well too, because as you can see, it's quite black in there. Let's just put it that way there. To get these apart, they don't come apart like the other switches and stuff like that. you do have to bend this in the front, which slides kind of like this. And then once you bend it out, you can slide it out. You can pull the spring back, and then you can release the latching system there, and then slide that out there. And then you can go ahead and give a good cleaning in there and stuff. You do want to service those as well too, because you can see they're black and they're not going to work very well. Now, good thing about it is though, I did receive the drivers, which you can see here. So that'll be the drivers that's going on the output stage when I go ahead and get the rest of the emitters and diodes and everything else that I gotta get back into the amplifier section. So that'll be coming up in part 3 of this video. So this concludes part 2 for now. Yes, a little bit hard to see on these, but you can kind of see there's some of the contacts. Let me just go ahead and move it there. But yeah, they're all nice and shiny now. That's gonna work way better. So now I just gotta go ahead and get that switch back together. And that's one out switch rebuilt, and you can see, yep, she works nice and smooth too as well. When you do reassemble this, make sure the latch part goes all the way at the bottom. The spring sits on top because the spring pushes against that latching mechanism, and at the other end where it sticks out in the spring goes in that slot right there. And they're easy enough to rebuild. Once you've done a couple of them, then they get pretty easy pretty much.